Welcome to the Thinking Stack.
Great to be back.
So this is part 5 of our 7-part series, using the integrated thinking stack framework to look at Kashmir. We've covered a lot of ground, mapping facts, acknowledging trauma, but today we're shifting gears, right?
We are. We're moving beyond just talking about Kashmiris. Today is about how individuals actually behave, how they react to their environment.
Okay, so this is layer 5 of the framework, human-centered design.
Exactly. Human-centered design. It's where we stop thinking in abstracts and start modeling, real human actions, choices, motivations, what actually makes people tick on the ground.
It sounds so fundamental, human-centered design, but you're saying policies often miss this.
Oh, absolutely. Way too often. Policies tend to get designed for this sort of idealized person. Homo spreadsheet, let's call them. Rational, logical, always making the best choice based on numbers.
Right, but reality isn't like a spreadsheet.
Not even close. Especially not in a place like Kashmir. We're really dealing with maybe homo-scared scrolling. People dealing with uncertainty, driven by emotion, swimming in these complex information flows.
So we need to ditch the neat models and look at the real user manuals for people living there. How do we do that?
Well, it means really digging into the everyday frictions people face. What obstacles are in their path? And what are their digital habits? Where do they get information? And crucially, what are the hidden incentives? What truly drives them, maybe beneath the surface?
Okay, hidden incentives, frictions, digital habits. How can we grasp that?
To make it concrete, we've developed 5 personas. These aren't just made up. They're built from, actual field interviews, data, the economic data from CMIE, things like that.
Personas. Okay, like archetypes. Let's hear about the first one. You mentioned a Valley Gen Z coder, 23 years old. What's their world like?
Right. So for this young person, everyday friction means things like, bang, a curfew pops up, messes up your day. Or the big one, the job drought. CMIE data from 2023 showed graduate unemployment around 23%. That's huge.
Wow, 23%. And where are they online?
Digitally, they're often behind a VPN, right? Using
Yeah.
Instagram, maybe Telegram, checking out crypto channels sometimes.
Interesting. And that hidden incentive, what's pushing them?
We think it's often about finding micro status in their online groups, getting recognition there, and maybe looking for quick exits, opportunities to get out even temporarily.
So any policy trying to reach them needs to understand that online validation matters and maybe offer short-term wins.
Exactly. Short-term, tangible things might resonate more than grand promises.
Okay, persona 2, the Pandit return hopeful, 31. What are their pressures?
Yeah, so for this person, the friction is maybe paying high rent in exile, say 18,000 rupees for a flat, and always that background fear. Fear about ancestral property being lost or, repossessed.
Where do they connect with their community?
Digitally, it's often Facebook, diaspora groups, shared memories, that kind of thing.
And the hidden incentive, the driving force.
It really boils down to that deep hope, that dream of a safe return, getting back to their ancestral home, maybe getting some form of restitution for everything lost.
A powerful motivator. Okay, let's shift gears completely. Persona 3, lossy apple grower, 45. Very different reality.
Very different. Everyday friction here is, it's the risk of shelling near the line of control. It's roads being cratered, making it hard to get apples to market. Real physical obstacles.
And digitally, how connected are they?
Much less so. Probably relying on basic 2G phone service, maybe getting SMS alerts for immediate warnings or news.
And with those kinds of pressures, what's their hidden incentive? What keeps them there?
Primarily, just keeping those orchards alive. It's their livelihood, their heritage, and always having a sort of mental evacuation plan ready for when things get bad seasonally. Survival, really.
Got it. Persona 4 brings another perspective. The CRPF constable, 29. What are their frictions?
For them, it's things like really tough sleep schedules, maybe only getting 3-hour cycles, and the constant potential for moral injury, the psychological toll of the job.
How do they cope? Digitally.
Might be listening to YouTube motivation mixes, things to keep morale up, manage the stress.
And the hidden incentive for someone in that role?
Often, it's pretty straightforward. Finish the posting safely, get through it unscathed, and of course the possibility of promotion, moving up the ladder.
Okay. And the last one, Persona 5, Pac AJK college grad, 24. What's their situation?
Friction for them looks like very limited freedom of speech.
Yeah.
And just starkly zero job prospects locally. It's a tough spot.
Where are they finding information or community online?
Their digital world might be Urdu Twitter, maybe seeing content circulated by ISPR via platforms like TikTok.
And what's driving them? the hidden incentive?
A lot of it seems to be seeking validation, within their online circles. And also that tangible hope.
Yeah.
Maybe getting a visa to work in the Gulf. That's a potential way out.
It's really striking how different those 5 worlds are. The frictions, the digital spaces, the quiet hopes.
Exactly. And it shows why generic top-down policies often just miss. They don't connect with these specific realities.
Yeah, a perfect example you mentioned was tourism. The idea that just bringing in tourists would fix things.
Right. You see a big number, like 1.8 million visitors in 2023, and think, great, success.
But then, April 2025, that horrific attack in Pahalgam, 26 tourists killed, it just shatters the narrative. Friction beats forecast, as you said.
It really does. And the key friction that policies seem to ignore, we called it the dignity toggle.
The dignity toggle, explain that.
Well, locals saw this really stark contrast. Soldiers would be taking selfies with tourists, all smiles, welcome to Kashmir, but then those same soldiers would be frisking locals, searching them day in, day out.
Ah, I see. So one face for the visitors, another for the residents.
Exactly, and that creates this huge cognitive dissonance. It feels deeply unfair, disrespectful, it generates outrage.
So the attempt at goodwill backfired because it ignored that feeling of dignity or lack thereof. This feels like it connects to behavioral economics. You mentioned some tripwires.
Yes, definitely. Several principles are really visible. First, the status hack.
Status hack?
Yeah, think about it. If getting respect or status through normal channels, like a good job, feels impossible or takes forever, some might see a shortcut. Violence, unfortunately, can offer this kind of instant, though obviously terrible, status or notoriety within certain groups. It can, perversely, seem more achievable than waiting years for a government job application to process.
That's a grim calculus. It bypasses the slow burn of building a career for immediate impact.
Exactly. It taps into that need for recognition, however skewed.
Okay, what's the second tripwire?
Present bias. We all have this, but it's stronger under pressure. The immediate reward outweighs a bigger future one.
How does that play out?
Well, take the apple harvest. Getting, say, 600 rupees cash today for a day's work feels much more real and urgent than some government scheme promising a career path years down the line.
Even if the scheme pays more eventually.
Even then. That immediate cash meets immediate needs. It explains why you sometimes see protests dip during harvest time. People are focused on earning right now.
Right. Present needs dominate. Okay, third principle.
Loss aversion. This is a powerful one. Basically, the pain of losing something feels much stronger than the pleasure of gaining something equivalent.
And in Kashmir, how does that apply?
We see it with some pandit families, for instance. They might be offered a place in a new housing scheme, maybe better facilities, but they hesitate. Why?
Fear of losing what they already have.
Exactly. Fear of losing the rights, however contested or complicated, to their original ancestral property. Even if it's damaged or inaccessible, the idea of losing that title feels like a bigger loss than the potential gain of a new flat.
That makes psychological sense. The fear of loss is potent. And the last one?
Trust asymmetry. This is huge. Who do people actually trust for information?
And the answer isn't necessarily official channels.
Far from it. There was a study, Carnegie Mellon 2022, that found WhatsApp forwards from, like, a friend of a friend, were trusted 4 times more than Indian TV news.
4 times more. Wow. What was the trust score for TV news?
Really low. Something like 2.9 out of 10. It shows you where the real influence lies in those peer-to-peer networks.
So understanding that information landscape is critical. What does it actually look like now, say in 2025?
Well, it's dominated by encrypted apps. WhatsApp is king. Penetration is near total, like 98% on smartphones. And trust is high, maybe 7.8 out of 10. It's where protest logistics happen, where rumors spread like wildfire.
Okay, WhatsApp is number 1. What else?
Instagram Reels. Huge for the under 30 crowd. Maybe 72% use it, often via VPNs. Trust is decent, like 6.5. It's driving narratives through memes. You see meme martyrdom, street aesthetics, that sort of thing.
What about older media forms? Newspaper, is it? TV?
Local Urdu newspapers have much lower reach, maybe 14% readership. Trust is lower too, around 4.1. They carry government ads, so credibility is seen as mixed.
And state TV?
Doordarshan Kashmir reaches older people through cable. Trust is maybe 5.0, but it's widely seen as, development propaganda.
Any international sources influential?
Al Jazeera Online gets significant traction. Maybe 35% of youth access it via VPN. Trust is fairly high, 6.4 or so. It often frames stories around narratives of Muslim victimhood globally.
The clear message there is If you want to communicate effectively, you have to be thinking WhatsApp and short video.
Absolutely. You have to play in that space, understand its rules. Otherwise, you're basically shouting into the wind.
Okay. Despite all these challenges, are there things that have worked, design hooks that actually landed?
Yes, and they're really instructive. One example is what we call the dignity ritual.
The dignity toggle leads to the dignity ritual. Makes sense. What was it?
It was part of a trial in Handwara back in 2022. Soldiers conducting searches were simply instructed to knock first and greet the residents in Kashmiri. Simple respect.
And the result?
Pretty remarkable. Complaints dropped by 50%. And intelligence tips from locals actually increased by 25%. That's from the Site Havana project files.
Wow. Just knocking and using the local language. Why did that work so well?
It triggers a different response. It activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest part, not the fight or flight. It signals respect, reduces threat perception.
Fascinating. Okay, another example.
Microcache 7 days. Remember present bias? This tackles it head on.
How?
An example is a scheme paying apple growers quickly, like within a week of harvest collection. J&K horticulture data from 2023 suggested youth stone pelting incidents fell by 18% during the payout month.
Because the immediate need was met. Less frustration.
Precisely. Immediate reward satisfies that present bias, potentially reducing the appeal of other activities born from frustration or idleness.
Okay, what about using those trusted networks we talked about?
The peer validator approach. Instead of government posters nobody trusts, get a local, credible voice involved.
Like who?
There was a case where a local Instagram influencer promoted a government mental health hotline. Calls reportedly tripled in a week.
Just because they promoted it.
Exactly. Social proof from someone seen as one of us beats official messaging hands down. That's from the Gov Telemental Health Initiative data in 2024.
Trust is everything. You also had one about art.
Yeah, shared grief art. Specifically, street theater about pellet injuries. The observation was that mixed audiences, Muslims, Pandits, watched the whole thing. No heckling, no walkouts.
Why would that work across divides?
It taps into something deeper, maybe. Mirror neurons, empathy. Seeing shared suffering portrayed artistically can sometimes bypass the usual ideological defenses. It connects on a human level.
So those are things that showed promise. What about the definite don'ts, the guaranteed face plans?
Oh, they're classics. Imposing a curfew with only 3 hours notice is one.
Why is that so bad?
Body reality. It triggers panic. Cortisol spikes. People rush out to hoard essentials. We've seen it documented. Milk prices shoot up overnight. Black markets boom. It creates chaos, not control.
Okay, bad idea. What else?
Calling pellet guns non-lethal from a policy perspective, maybe. But the body reality. Permanent disfigurement. Blindness.
And that creates?
Martyr icons. The eye patch becomes a symbol, fuels recruitment memes online. It has the opposite effect of deterring anything.
Right, counterproductive. And the last, anti-pattern.
Pitching huge, 5-year mega projects, announcing some giant dam or highway plan 5-10 years down the line.
Why doesn't that work? Development is good, surely.
Because people's nervous systems, especially under stress, operate on a much shorter horizon, like 24 hours, maybe a week. A 5-year promise feels abstract, unreal. Remember that trust index for development being less than 3 out of 10? There's deep skepticism about grand, long-term promises.
So quick, tangible, respectful seems to be the theme. You also mentioned a cross-identity adoption hack, the Kashmir box.
Yes, this is a really interesting private sector example. It's an e-commerce platform.
Doing what?
It connects artisans from different communities, say Pandit weavers, with Muslim papier-mâché artists. They collaborate on products, maybe gift boxes.
Okay. And the hack?
The payment system. It uses smart contracts on a blockchain for profit sharing.
Smart contracts, so the money distribution is automatic and transparent.
Exactly. When a sale happens, the profits are split automatically according to the pre-agreed terms, recorded transparently on the blockchain. No arguments, no suspicion about who got paid what.
And the results?
Early pilot data showed pretty decent monthly revenue, around 26 lakh rupees, and crucially, 0 reported intercommunal problems within the platform's operations.
Why does that transparency seem to work so well?
It directly tackles that corrosive "you'll cheat me" narrative that often poisons cross-community initiatives. If the money is handled transparently by the tech, it's much harder to distrust or resent your business partner, even if they're from a different background. It builds practical economic interdependence.
That's a fascinating example of design thinking applied to economics and community relations. So, wrapping up layer 5, it feels like it boils down to some core truth. You call them knife-edge truth.
Yeah, 3 key ones, I think. First, dignity is greater than development. people need respect, to be treated as equals, often more than they need another bridge or scheme. You can't just buy goodwill if dignity is missing.
Okay, dignity first. Second,
Algorithms outrank loudspeakers. Where does information really flow? It's WhatsApp, it's Reels. That's the real Ministry of Information now. Policy messages have to be designed for that environment, or they just won't be heard.
and the third truth.
If a policy can't survive a meme, it won't survive the street. If your idea is easily ridiculed online, if it becomes a negative meme, it's dead on arrival. It shows a fundamental disconnect from the cultural conversation. It won't have legitimacy on the ground.
So layer 5, human-centered design, it's really about getting past those assumptions, isn't it? Understanding the friction, the real motivations, how people actually get their information.
Precisely. You have to know the lived reality, the hidden incentives, the dominant channels. If you don't design for those, even the best intentions can fall flat, or worse, backfire.
This has been incredibly insightful, really grounding the discussion in human behavior. So next time we're moving to layer 6.
That's right. Risk and resilience. We'll take these behavioral insights and start stress testing them. How do these approaches hold up against shocks, droughts, drone incidents, political shifts? How resilient are these human-centered designs?
Looking forward to that. And it leaves a thought, doesn't it, for everyone listening? Think about the policies or systems in your own world. How well do they actually account for messy, real human behavior and the power of those informal chats and WhatsApp groups? Something to chew on